Welcome to the Abroad in America podcast, the only financial podcast designed specifically for expats living in America, where you go behind the scenes with financial planner, author, and speaker Jimmy Miller to learn how to make your time in America as financially rewarding as possible. And now, here's your host, Jimmy Miller.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Abroad in America. I'm your host, Jimmy Miller. Today we're talking about something that sounds boring until it costs you thousands of dollars. We're talking about your 401k at work. More specifically, we're talking about why, if you're a foreign national working in America, you should probably be using the Roth 401k instead of the traditional tax-deferred 401k. And I know, when you start a new job in America, HR gives you a mountain of forms, benefit logins, passwords, and acronyms. Somewhere in that pile, you're asked, do you want traditional or Roth 401k? And most people end up picking traditional because it lowers their taxes today, or it's what their coworkers do and recommend. And for Americans who plan to stay in America forever, maybe that can make sense in some cases. But for expats, well, that's a different story. Let's start with the basic difference between the two types of 401k accounts. A traditional 401k means you put money in before paying income tax, so you get a tax break today, which sounds nice. But later, when you take the money out, every dollar is taxable as ordinary income, contributions, growth, everything. A Roth 401k works the opposite way. You pay tax today when you put the money in after tax. You don't get the immediate tax break, but the money can grow tax-free and, if handled properly, come out tax-free later. So the traditional plan says, don't pay tax now, pay tax later. And the Roth says, pay tax now and be done with it. And for many expats in America, being done with the IRS is exactly the point. Now here's the problem with the traditional 401k. That tax deduction feels like a gift, but it isn't really a gift. It's more like a loan. In my book, Divorce the IRS, I describe traditional retirement contributions as borrowing money from the IRS. You avoid tax today, but the IRS now has a future claim on that money, and not just on the original amount you contributed, but also on the growth. So if you put in $10,000 into a traditional 401k, you didn't really save $10,000 that's fully yours. You saved money that has an IRS lien attached to it. And one day, when you take it out, the IRS will want its share. Now, for an expat, this gets even more important because many foreign nationals do not plan to stay in America forever. You may be here for 3 years, 5 years, or even 7 years. Maybe you're on assignment. Maybe you're here for career growth. Maybe you're just here for an adventure. But eventually, you may want to go home or to another country. And when that happens, you may look at your 401k and think, great, I've saved all this money. Now I'd like to take it with me. And that's when the traditional 401k can turn ugly. If you withdraw money from a traditional 401k before you're age 59 and a half, you generally owe income tax plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty. And the 10% penalty is also calculated on your entire balance, not just on what you put in. So there's a 10% penalty on all the interest and growth you made in your accounts as well. Ouch. So now the tax breaks you enjoyed in your paycheck while working comes back around with friends. Federal tax, probably state tax, as 43 of the U.S. states have a state tax, and early withdrawal penalties. This is how expats can end up losing a huge chunk of their account when they leave America. And the painful part is this. The original tax savings often didn't feel that big when they received it in your paycheck. It was just a little extra in each paycheck. Most people don't even save that little extra, they just spend it. So they get a tiny benefit today that they don't even realize because they spend it, but create a much larger tax problem later. That's not planning, that's procrastination with a tax form and a problem. Now compare that with the Roth 401k. With the Roth, you already paid tax before the money went in, so your contributions are after-tax money. That means if you leave America and you need flexibility, the Roth is usually much cleaner. You're not dragging the same tax-deferred liability around with you. Yes, there's still rules. Yes, the growth is subject to taxes and penalties if withdrawn too early or handled incorrectly. And yes, you should still work with a cross-border tax professional before taking distributions. But the key point is this. With the Roth, the IRS does not own part of your contributions. You paid the toll already, and that can make a massive difference when your American adventure ends. So let me put this into a simple example. Imagine two expats come to America and they work for the same company. They both earn $100,000 per year. They both contribute 10% of their salary to the company retirement plan. They both stay for 3 years. They both receive the same employer match. They both invest in the same investment fund within the plan. Only one chooses traditional and the other chooses Roth. At the end, they'll have similar looking balances, but when they leave America before 59 and a half years old, the traditional account may be hit with income tax and penalties on the full withdrawal. The Roth account is usually far more favorable because the contributions have already been taxed. It's only the growth that will be subject to the tax and penalties. Same job, same salary, same savings rate, very different take-home results. This is why the decision matters so much. Now, some people will say, but Jimmy, I want the tax savings now. And I get it. Everybody wants lower taxes today. But the goal of your retirement account is not to create a slightly nicer paycheck this month. The goal is to maximize how much of your money you actually get to keep. And for expats, this is even more important because your timeline may be shorter, your tax situation may be more complex, and your future country or residence may be uncertain. You don't know where you'll be living in 10 years. You don't know what your tax rate will be then. You don't know whether you'll stay in America long enough to use the account the way Americans typically do. So why build your plan around later? The traditional 401k is a later account. The Roth 401k is a handle it now and move on account. And for expats, handle it now is often the smarter philosophy. There's another issue here too, currency and mobility. Expats live mobile lives. You may move countries again. You may retire somewhere else. You may want to consolidate assets later. You may not want a future tax bill from a country you no longer live in. A Roth account gives you a cleaner planning option. It gives you more certainty, and financial certainty is valuable when your life already crosses borders. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that every person in every situation must always choose Roth no matter what. If you know you're staying in America permanently, and you're in an unusually high tax bracket today, or if there are treaty issues with your home country, you probably need personalized advice. But for the typical foreign national working in America temporarily or semi-temporarily, the Roth 401k is usually the better default. And please don't misunderstand one thing. You should still pay attention to the employer match. If your company gives you matching money, that's free money, and you should take it. Take it if you can. But you may have to stay long enough to become vested in the employer match, so read the rules. But your own contributions are always going to be yours. The important choice is where you save your salary deferrals, traditional or Roth. And for most expats, I want you to strongly consider Roth. Because the traditional 401k gives you a tax break today, but it may also create a tax trap tomorrow. The Roth 401k asks you to pay the tax today, but it can give you flexibility, control, and potentially tax-free income later. And if there's one theme we keep coming back to on this podcast, it's this. America offers incredible financial opportunities, but only if you understand the rules. The 401k is one of those opportunities. Used correctly, it can help you build wealth while you're here. Used incorrectly, it can become one of the more expensive surprises when you leave. So before you click the default button in your company benefit portal, pause and ask yourself, am I staying in America forever? Will I need access to this money before 59 and a half? Am I just taking the traditional option because I like the tax break today? Am I accidentally borrowing from the IRS? Because sometimes the best financial move is not the one that saves you tax this year. Sometimes the best move is the one that gives future you the most freedom. And for expats in America, that often means choosing the Roth 401k. Now that's it for today's episode of Abroad in America. If you're working in the U.S. and your company offers a Roth 401k, take a closer look. Don't just pick traditional because everyone else does. And as always, talk with a qualified financial advisor and tax professional who understands cross-border planning before making big decisions. In the next episode, we'll explore the Roth conversion and the 5-year rule, just in case you have already been putting money away tax-deferred in your traditional 401k plan, and you're not sure if you can fix that problem. So stay tuned for that episode to learn how you can potentially undo any mistakes you may have already done. Until next time, stay curious, stay intentional, and keep exploring.
Want even more ideas, tools, and resources on how to navigate your financial life as an expat in America? Check out all the resources on Jimmy's website at baobabwealthabroad.com and subscribe to the blog to stay up to date on issues affecting expats. Don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. See you next time. Baobab Wealth and Baobab Wealth Abroad are DBAs of Baobab Wealth LLC, a Florida registered investment advisor. This podcast is designed for general education purposes only and shouldn't be taken as legal, investment, or tax advice. You should seek out a qualified tax professional or licensed financial advisor to determine what is best for your personal situation.